Hey, thanks everybody for joining us. It was so good we had to do it twice. We are talking about The Last Dance, episodes 3 and 4. Once again, this one all about those bad boy Pistons and focusing on Dennis Rodman and his time with the Chicago Bulls. And joining me today is a guy who was around a whole lot back then. Look at his background there. The Bad Boys, Rockin' Rick and Bad Billy. Bill Laimbeer, it's Bill Hobson, and Bill has some interesting insight. Bill, a season ticket holder back in the day, so he was at a lot of these games, so it's going to be great to hear from him. Now you see him on Michigan Golf Live, as you can see his Ryder Cup 16 shirt there. And then, of course, we are joined, as we were last week, by the Pistons video asset manager. It's Ryan Ross. And, Bill, let's start with you, because I know that guy behind you is the greatest of all time. He is the GOAT, according to Bill Hobson. Give us just your general thoughts overall, 4 episodes deep. What you think. It's incredibly produced and something we've all been waiting 22 years to see. But what do you think just in general so far?
Oh, it is great. And I'm glad that Michael has brought to the table his good side, his I want to talk side, because his interviews, I think, have been even more candid than I thought they were going to be. He's not phoning this one in. You can tell this is the shaping of his legacy that is pretty important to him.
Yep.
And so last night's episodes 3 and 4, while they may not be the favorites of Chicago Bulls fans, they were not only my favorites of this series, but they were maybe my favorite 2 hours of television in the last several years. I was on the edge of my couch just soaking in every moment of Michael's anger at how the Pistons walked off. I loved every second of it, Ryan. And I'll just kind of set the table here a little bit. When I was in high school, yeah, we had season tickets at the Silverdome and all of that. But in my junior and senior years of high school, I began a radio internship. And at the ages of 17 and 18, I was in the locker room with these guys. I was covering the team as an unpaid radio intern with a cassette deck and a microphone. And I got, scared to death by Mahorn at times. I watched Laimbeer abuse reporters. But I was there. I was there when Rodman made sense. I was there when this team came together. And so I don't want to ramble on, but that was such a good night of television.
It was incredible. And the face he made, and we'll get into it, when they were about to show, Jordan that is, about to show him what Isaiah said, didn't even get the iPad in his hand yet. His face immediately, and he looked more mad today than he looked when they were walking right in front of him, walking past him to the locker room with 7 seconds left on the clock. I just found that hilarious that 30 years later, 29, he looked even more mad today. Ryan, we talked to you last week about this. Let's jump into it, and let's start right there, because in Detroit, of course, that's the huge talking point. And all across the country, Zeke and Bill Laimbeer both were the guests on ESPN all day today. Your thoughts on how they, I guess, set up and how they dealt with the walk-off?
Yeah, so first of all, I echo everything that Bill said. That was well put. I couldn't do it better myself. Feel exactly the same way. I think you talked about his reaction when they were getting ready to let him see what Isaiah had said about the walk-off 30 years later. He wasn't having it. He didn't even want to hear it. I mean, he's like, there's no way he's not going to be an a-hole,
Right.
But the funny thing is, and I don't know if you guys got a chance to read Terry Foster's blog today, and Isaiah, I think, touched on it. I know Bill did. Bill Laimbeer did. But everything was sort of built off of everything that MJ had said the day before that, after they were up 3-0, sitting in those end zone seats, talking to reporters, and just completely denigrating everything the Pistons had done, had built up, talking about how they were bad champions, talking about how they were bad for basketball.
Undeserving champions.
just completely desecrated them, desecrated their legacy.
Yep.
And then he's flabbergasted that they walked off. I mean, what did he think was going to happen?
Right.
Right. And then obviously you have, the the thing that wasn't really talked about either was the fact that the Celtics sort of did the same thing to the Pistons. Isaiah happened to catch Kevin McHale, who was a friend of his, walking out, trying to, catch up with his teammates, so to speak. And then they ended up having a handshake in a little moment at center court, then in the Silverdome. But I thought it was interesting dichotomy, the Jordan's reaction versus the things that they didn't tell you in the documentary that they didn't talk about. And of course they wouldn't, because it's about the Bulls' legacy. It's about Michael Jordan's legacy, not the Pistons. So, somebody has to play the villain, and the Pistons were pretty good at playing that role, obviously.
well, Bill, and I was shocked how they started it, because the producer was starting to ask a question, and Isaiah, no. And I have not, even in the Bad Boys documentary, they did not tell it like this. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. We're going to set the record straight this time. And we all know about the Celtics, but no place have they ever shown that video. You do see the high five and the handshake, whatever, with Isaiah and with McHale. And we've seen that here locally for years. And I remember Blaha. Oh, what a great moment. They didn't show us that like they're doing with the Bad Boys over and over and over. So then they show that video. I'm like, oh my gosh, the Bad Boys are going to look good here. Oh my gosh. And in some eyes, they still do. But then when Jordan comes on and just pretty much squashed that as far as everybody around the nation. But your thoughts on how they did that, because, man, that toyed with my emotions for a minute there. I really thought, oh, they're finally going to get, they're going to get their moment here. They're going to get cleared. And, man, Jordan wasn't having any of that.
No, because this is Michael Jordan's world, and we're all just supposed to live in it and go along with whatever his legacy demands. And his legacy demands are different from reality. Now, let me go back to the Silverdome in that moment with the Celtics. I was sitting on press row then before they started putting us up in the rafters, and everybody there at that time was looking at each other like, where are they going? AD's at the free throw line. We still have game to go here. But we didn't care. The next day, nobody cared. We didn't talk about it at all. There was a high level of excitement at having finally, slain the dragon.
Yep.
And the Pistons didn't care.
The Pistons didn't care at all, because their opinion of themselves was not dependent on somebody else's respect. Michael has existed his entire career, and I think you could say post-career, demanding that you call him the greatest.
That's why we have this documentary.
Watch his Hall of Fame speech. He used his Hall of Fame speech for one reason and one reason only, and that was to extract revenge over everybody who had supposedly slighted him. Why wasn't Isaiah on the Dream Team? Because a year after walking off the court, Michael wasn't going to have it. And I still can't figure out why Chuck Daly was okay with that, but that's how it all came together. So now we go to this walk off the court thing, and I love, Ryan, it's one of the things that gives me goosebumps still. I love the fact that 30 years later, it still digs Michael's under his skin, because I can think of no better way to humble somebody who has yet to be humbled ever than by having somebody else go, yeah, we walked off the court.
Right.
Deal. Don't care. You beat us. Good job.
And to that point, he did it again today. Bill Laimbeer literally said, you could have just been doing an SNL interpretation, because that's literally what he said today.
Right?
I mean, it was, they were whining, and I wasn't having it. We were sick of them whining, and we said, we're leaving. Forget it. These guys are whiners. They don't deserve it. We're out of here. And they say, hey, do you feel bad? And he goes, no. I don't feel bad at all.
Today.
He goes, whatever. They beat us. He goes, they beat us. We got old. Move on. And that was it. And it was more like this when they beat us. I mean, he could not have cared less. It was hilarious.
They cut to sound bites, from Jordan, from Pippen, from Horace Grant, from Cartwright.
Yep.
And all of these people, and every single one of them are still irritated about it 30 years later. And I can't think of a better legacy for the Bad Boys than to have it still under the skin of a team with skin so thin that it's almost transparent as this Bulls team. They were a great team. I don't know why they can't just say, yeah, we beat them into submission. We beat them into shame, and they had to walk. No, they were mad that they didn't get their handshakes. I don't know.
Yeah, and like Cartwright's comment about how they were in our rear view mirror. It took you 4 chances to get over them, and by the time you did beat them, they had played 5 consecutive Eastern Conference Finals, 3 straight NBA Finals up until that. A lot of those guys were getting into their 30s. I'm not saying that the Bulls don't deserve their props, but they beat a Piston team that was nowhere near at the top of their game in 1991. You could see that they were on their way down, and they were no longer going to be.
Zeke was playing with one arm. I mean,
yes.
His wrist surgery, and he had an ankle he turned in the Celtics series. I mean, come on.
There's no way they were in the rearview mirror if in 2020 you're still talking about them. They're in the passenger seat.
Objects are closer than
They're riding shotgun with you. They're still part of it.
They're in the sidecar.
You can't. They're at least in the back seat. You can't get past all this and celebrate the greatness that your team was about to start going through.
Right.
You got to still worry about this, and I just I could not have written the script better myself.
It is strange. Ryan, go ahead, man.
Okay, I was just gonna say, I don't know if you guys got a chance to see Isaiah's interview with Chris Broussard last week.
I didn't. No.
So I just watched that today. It was a compelling interview. I highly recommend. But he talked about, on this subject, he talked about how with the Celtics and the Lakers, when they finally got over both of those humps, they always talked about them in reverence. They held them to a very, very high standard. Those guys taught them how to be champions. I mean, think about in '87, Game 5, Isaiah throws the ball away. They probably win that series. You think about '88, the Phantom Foul. I mean, they should have won the NBA championship that year. But they were able to overcome those, and they learned how to be champions. And they held the Celtics and the Lakers in such high regard. The Bulls had to overcome the Pistons. They lost 3 consecutive years in the playoffs, twice in the Eastern Finals. They finally overcome them, and they overcome them in dominant fashion. And instead of saying, all right, we got over the hump, we beat a great team, and now it's our turn, they had to denigrate them. They don't hold the Pistons in high regard. Why? Because they say they played a non-aesthetic brand of basketball, a physical brand of basketball. Well, go back and watch that Celtics-Lakers documentary they did just a couple of years ago. That was really, really well done, by the way, as well.
Yeah.
There was physical basketball going on long before the Pistons got good in the 80s.
That classic Rambis shot where he gets decapitated going on. I mean, he gets blasted right out of the air.
That was a Nikita Koloff rush to sickle.
I
was trying to make a wrestling reference and I blew it. I'm sorry.
But as we sit here in this era of revisionist history, the thing you see the most often, even during the Bad Boys documentary, the 30 for 30, the thing you would see most often was never the beauty and poetry of this offense and this team defense. You would just see the scenes like you see behind me with the rough physical play. This team was the Golden State Warriors before the current Warriors. I mean, they weren't outside the three-point arc as much, but they opened things up. You had a 7-footer who was shooting 3-pointers and shooting from the outside in an era when that didn't happen.
Nobody.
That era was Patrick Ewing and Kareem down low. And
low post, yep. And they were playing high pick and roll, which is like the standard today. They weren't doing that back then.
And let's not forget about how deep this team was. And so if somebody was having a rough night, man, oh man, it went deeper than just Vinny. It went 8 or 9 guys deep. This was a really, really good team. And I know that phantom foul on Laimbeer cost us another title. So did the year prior, the pass on the inbounds play against the Celtics. So let's kind of go back in reality and realize that this was not a fluky team. This was not a team that just got lucky for a 1-year flash in the pan.
No.
This was a really good team. And so when they finally lose to the Bulls, and you could kind of tell that the gas had run out of the engine. They were tired of being insulted by the Bulls. It wasn't that they were being beaten; it was that they were being insulted.
The day before, played a massive role. You know, when you say they're undeserving, you might not like them, and you nailed it, Bill. all you see, and I hate when I hear, and I guess I'm in the minority, I don't know. I love the NBA today. The way you mentioned the Golden State Warriors, the way the game has changed, it's opened up. I mean, the skilled guys are great. Yeah, there's things people don't like about it, but these other people believe that the 80s and 70s and 90s was just filled with people getting clotheslined. And that's not, I love defense. Well, guess what? A, that didn't happen every play. And B, clotheslining people is not defense. You know, I mean, what are you talking about? Like, it's just they're in Wally world when they're talking like that. Now, that said, you nailed it again. This team does not get its credit whatsoever. Look at that backcourt. Maybe now the Warriors have passed them. Greatest backcourt of all time, maybe until Steph and Clay. Or Steph and Clay. And then, Bill Laimbeer, the original stretch 4 and 5. He held the record for threes in a game for the longest time.
Yeah.
I mean, and you go down that. You had Rodman coming off the bench for a couple of those years. I mean, it took Mark Aguirre saying, hey, man, this guy's passed me up. I mean, they were just incredibly skilled. They do not get there. And you know what? Okay. Lakers had Magic and Kareem. Okay, they're not the Lakers. Larry Bird. Okay, they're not. You know, if you're fourth on that list behind Larry, Michael, and MJ, that's still pretty darn good. I mean, Bill Simmons said it last night. In his book, he had them the 4th greatest team of all time. That ain't bad, man. Give them their due.
There was just a couple of weeks ago on NBA TV, I saw a players only thing, and it was Isaiah and Joe sitting across from Clay and Steph. There's just the 4 of them. The entire hour or 2 hours, I don't remember how long it was, and I couldn't turn it off. And I'm not a diehard NBA fan, but I loved the mirror images looking at each other with some key differences. And I don't think any of them talked about it, but let's look at some key differences. I think from outside the arc, I would say that the Warriors would be the better of the pairings.
Sure.
But from inside the arc, I don't think it's even close. And from a killer / cutthroat mindset, I don't know how you get more of that than Zeke brought to the table. I mean,
punching his best friend in the Silver Dome in the '88 finals.
25 points on one ankle in one quarter against the Lakers. This is a cutthroat, ice in his veins killer to go along with Joe, who was as smooth and steady as could ever be. And so we tend to forget in our "what did you do for me lately" culture how good some of these things, some of these people, some of these teams used to be. And part of the irritation on my part is we do forget how good they were because nobody ever shows it.
Right.
It's like when you watch an NFL film's highlight reel about a Hall of Fame quarterback, every pass he throws seems to have a Lions defender on the other side. Well, as it turns out, he didn't only play 16 games a year against the Lions. It just looks that way.
Right, yeah.
Well, it's the same kind of misleading recapturing of history that we see all too often with our bad boys. They were a really good team on both sides, both ends of the court. They don't get the credit for it.
Yep. And you can say, and I heard it again last night on a lot of the shows, that, well, they caught the Lakers at the end of their run. Okay. Well, they caught the Celtics at the end of their run. Yeah, they did. But they weren't dead or anything. You know, it's not like they were an 8 seed. They
were still in the finals, right?
Yeah, you know, and obviously, well, and you can go the other way too. You know, we could say Jordan had no all-stars until Pippen became an all-star, and then they finally beat. And I'll say it. I don't know if you guys will. I talked to Ryan Field last night, and he gave him his credit. But you know, I became a Jordan fan because at some point I'm like, wait, I'm not going to let my bitterness blind me from what this dude is doing is incredible. So I'm going to watch him, and I'm going to go, holy cow, man. Oh, my gosh. Did you just see what he did? Some people can't do that. And, yeah, we were cheering.
I worked with quite a few of them, actually.
Yeah, we were cheering for him, you know, the bad boys. But at the same time, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from what that dude can do on the court. And Pippen may be one of the top 5 perimeter defenders ever. I mean, and we know Rodman. Rodman's the greatest rebounder ever. And I loved in that. Let's get to him a little bit. We've heard him talk about it a little before, but what did you guys think about the way he described how he learned how to rebound? And he went in, I thought, more in depth on any topic in this. We knew everything, but he went more in depth last night than he ever has about how he studied rebounding.
It was absolutely compelling. I mean, to think that you would sit there and watch video after video, not to learn how like guys are getting open shots or how guys are, knocking down shots or doing different things that are, most people equate to basketball, like the aesthetic part of it. But he's looking at, okay, what do I do well? Well, I rebound and I play defense. I'm not an offensive guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down film and figure out where the ball comes off the rim from certain angles and how guys are spinning it off their hands and what it's doing when it hits the rim so that I can anticipate and I can beat guys to the punch because I know I'm quicker. I know I have better anticipation. And if I study where the ball is going to go, I'm going to get there first. That to me is an absolute, I tip my cap to him for that because a lot of people would not attribute that kind of a, mental acumen for Dennis Rodman. You know what I'm saying?
He's no dummy. He might have a screw loose, but he is no dummy.
Yeah, he is a savant in basketball. But let's also back up and remember, I can remember when he first got to the Pistons, this was a raw, completely undefined bundle of energy, never slowed down, never got tired. I don't understand. The guy's a freak of nature, but that's what he was. But he was very, very raw. And there were a lot of people that were kind of skeptical of the Pistons having used a draft pick on him. You could pick this guy up at the neighborhood corner store kind of a thing, right?
Right.
Well, let's not underestimate the impact of Brendan Suhr and Brendan Malone, the defensive specialist assistant coaches, on teaching Dennis how to study the art of rebounding. Now, he brought to it an unmatched, God-given package of physicality. And my son was watching with me last night, and he said, I've never seen a guy jump so quickly, so often, the entire game.
Yeah, like Tigger.
There's no tiring.
Stick, man.
Well, so he brings that to the table. That's probably what Will Robinson saw in him when they went to draft him. Somebody else taught him how to study rebounding and shot rotation and where to go. Some of that's instinctive, I should say, but some of it was sit down with a at that time a legal pad,
right,
and a projector, and watch how this goes. Watch how the rotation comes. You heard Dennis say it last night. I knew Bird's ball rotated this way and it went over here. Magic sometimes didn't have a rotation. I mean,
knuckleballs.
The guy has watched his film. And I actually believe, having watched the evolution of Dennis from wide-eyed, innocent college kid to freak show off the planet, I think that he actually had the capacity to turn his oddness on and off.
Yeah.
Mostly. There was the incident in the parking lot at the Palace that was very scary because he got very depressed. But when it came time to get on the court and exhibit what he was, I think his primary purpose was in life, I don't know anybody who was better. I saw him rebounding in this thing. I saw him ripping rebounds away from Barkley.
Right.
Nobody got rebounds away from Barkley.
Right.
I saw him go over Kareem and grab one. 7'2" against 6'8".
Right. And his numbers are just stupid, too, when you look at him. I mean, he's averaging 17, 18 a game. And people don't remember either those Bulls years. He didn't get into the league till he was 26 years old. He's 38 years old out there leading the league in rebounding. I mean, it's just stupid what that guy did. He doesn't get the credit at all. But, Bill, real quick, and we should have done this earlier, I'd never gone to a game at the Silverdome. I didn't have the fortune to do that. Not even the Silverdome, but just in general, take us into the Palace back in the day, and especially when Michael Jordan came to town. What was that like? What was the buzz like when the guy with the shoes, the heir apparent was coming in?
Well, first, media dining was always way more exciting. which is how I kind of mark big events. So back in the media dining room, they always broke out really good food.
There you go.
Michael was in
They
town,
still do that. They still do that.
Even though he wasn't eating with us at that time.
Right.
There was a buzz in the air. There was never a ticket to be had. Michael was the greatest show on earth, and that never really changed throughout his career until he, of course, left Chicago. When he came in, you would have this combative mindset that for the longest time, my seat on press row was directly behind Chuck Daly. It was they've changed things now. I think the media's in the ends, but it used to be the best seats in the house. Now they figured out they could sell those.
Yeah, I know, it was incredible.
So I just sat right on the edge of my seat listening, and whenever there was a big game, if the Bulls were in town, if Magic was in town, kind of a thing, there was no John Sally looking up for pretty girls in the stands during instructions. Everybody was kind of locked in on Chuck, except for Rodman, because honestly, whatever he's going to say, Dennis is already thinking, go get rebound. That's what I do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, boss.
But the energy in the arena was crazy, and the Palace could be pretty loud. I remain perplexed, and Ryan, you probably can make more sense out of this than I can. Not being a billionaire, I don't really understand why you invest $40 million in renovating the Palace 2 years ago, and then the next year move to LCA where you share revenue, give up all your parking and everything else, when you had a stunning arena that could really, really get loud, that you didn't have to pipe in the noise. Now it's all synthetic noise. That place was pretty special. And to be there when they christened it, to make the move over from the Silverdome to christen the Palace, they had a contest. It was named by just some fan that won tickets for life by naming it that way. And
it was booed.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, they didn't like it.
Yeah, because they didn't win.
Yeah.
Anything you're going to put in the suburbs, we normally would think of as being a little laid back and maybe kind of tranquil. When the teams were good, that place was fantastic.
Incredible. And you had two different streaks of over 200 sellouts. That thing sold out from the day it opened until 1994 when the team started slipping. And then the 6 years with the going to work guys. And it was as loud as it gets.
I'll tell you
one of the first things that Stan Van Gundy talked about when he came here as our head coach and new general manager in 2014 was how he hated coming to that building as an opposing coach, because he knew that his team was in for a very, very rough night because the fans were indeed the sixth man and maybe even the seventh man. So, you get an outsider, or at least a previous outsider, coming in talking about that, it kind of gives you an idea the Palace was a special place and a tough place to play if you're the opposition.
Well, and Bill, I was there when noise was pumped in on top of 22,076, which was the attendance at the Palace. On top of that number, then you had the Flames, then you had Mason, then you had the Gong. And I was there. I wasn't there for the Bad Boys run, but I was there for the entire going to work run. And, dude, earplugs, man, it was so loud. It was just incredible.
Right after the Pistons won their first title, swept the Lakers that were injured Lakers, but it doesn't matter. You still get the big trophy, I believe.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They came back home, and they had the parade, but then they had what we called the party at the Palace.
Yep.
Yes.
It was the big rally, and it was free. You could come in. I think I was part of broadcasting it live back to the station in Flint that I was still an unpaid intern for. I felt like I was a big guy, because I think I held a phone up to a microphone. It was just so backwards.
That's cooler experience than I had in high school, man. I'll tell you that.
Well, but when Mahorn stepped out and it was his turn to talk, and he just started the Bad Boys for 22,000 people, I have said a number of times, the two loudest sporting moment experiences in my life. One, I was on the sidelines when Michigan played at Oregon out at Outson Stadium, and I've just never heard anything like that before.
Yeah.
And that was the second one at the Palace. I've never heard anything like it. And I know that other arenas can get loud, but this team, when these Bad Boys broke through and claimed the title, let's remember something. It is not exactly a frequent occurrence at that time in the city of Detroit to be racking up titles.
Right.
And so this was just an incredibly huge moment in and one that I'll remember for a long time.
In my 6 years with the 6+ years with the organization, that is probably the most requested clip outside of a basketball clip. That so it's funny that you bring that up. That Mahorn leading the Bad Boys chant inside the Palace for the rally.
Well, I'm trying to remember my timing right, and I don't want to run off on telling a bunch of old guy stories. But I think, Ryan, maybe you can help me. I think right after that party,
during the party,
was when Mahorn got cut loose in the expansion draft.
Yeah.
Because we were back in the corridor by the locker room, and there were people crying, and I was like, "I'm sorry, did they take the trophy away?" Yeah. And then Rick came out with a garbage bag over his shoulder full of his stuff, and he was bawling.
Yeah.
And the cruelty of the business of sports to go from most requested clip, not involving playing, to see in Minnesota.
Yeah.
It was a jarring moment for me and obviously for a lot of other people. So it was a strange day, that party.
But Bill, you got some good stuff from early on in that run wearing the Pistons red, white, and blue.
Little Billy here used to have hair. And back in the day when I had an unpaid internship, it was my first game ever. I was going to cover for the Pistons. And I was very excited because I was a huge fan, but you're not supposed to be a fan, right, when you're in the media.
Oh, yeah.
But I'd never been to anything at the Silverdome other than my seats as a season ticket holder. But this was all different. So I decided I was going to go a little bit early, 3.5 hours. So
could you even get in?
Bitch.
I get to the Silverdome. Back then, we used to park in the players' lot and walk in through the same entrance. And I walk in, and I'm a nervous wreck. I'm flop sweating. I got my Marantz tape recorder. I got my little briefcase, and I look like all I was missing was the little media thing in my fedora, and I would have been all set. And I go,
see, I'm here to cover the game, see?
Yeah, hey, Sonny. So there's hardly anybody paying attention to anything at that time, and not many players were there. And I see off to my right this sign that says locker room. And I look at my little credential, and it says all access. Like, all right, giddy up. So I start going down this hallway. The lights aren't even on yet. And I start walking down the hallway, and the lights, somebody flicked them on, like security guard or something. And I'm told that when I get nervous, I tend to hunch over and kind of walk like I'm in trouble or something. So I'm doing my nervous walk. I get past this door that's closed, and I'm walking down. I can see kind of the stools in there. It wasn't a fancy locker room at the Silverdome. And I hear this door open, and I hear, "Hey, what the F do you think you're doing?" I could feel a warm trickle down my leg. I turn around, and it's Mahorn. And he is glaring at me with the glare of death. And I'm certain that my time on this earth is about to come to an end.
Grand opening, grand closing.
Oh, and he just starts this blue streak of you MF and white boy, something. And he's just going to town on me. And I'm just frozen. And I'm not a tiny person, but he's also not a tiny person. And he was Rick Mahorn. And so I start some sort of nervous auctioneer-like response. It's okay if I'm here. I've got a credential. They said I could come in here. I don't want an autograph. My girlfriend might like an autograph, but I don't want to. I mean, I'm just going all over the place. And he just busts out laughing. And he goes, "Stay right there." Done. I see him look back in the room. He goes, "Yeah, come on here." And he calls somebody out, and it's Isaiah. And they were in there for some treatment or something, early. And Isaiah comes out. He's kind of standing right there, and he says, "I understand you're causing a little bit of trouble." And again, I am now, the other leg has a warm trickle going down it, and I start my whole auctioneer thing again. And he just starts laughing. And he says, "Stop walking around like you're afraid to get caught. You're fine." And I kind of breathed this deep sigh of relief, and I got out of there. I didn't even go another step further. I thought, I've escaped death this once. Let me just go and find what they told me is media dining. Of course, it wasn't even open yet.
Right.
So that was my first game ever. And if you want to go to the other end of that, I have seen reporters I can't even tell you how many double-digit times, instead of asking Laimbeer a question, either doing the talk about, which is my pet peeve,
Right.
or just making a statement while he's getting dressed after a game. So here's Laimbeer at his locker. He's always putting on lotion like he's like he's a supermodel, and he's got to have soft skin. He's just lotioning up. He's not looking at anybody. He's just doing the thing. And I learned this after probably half a season. You just stand back and wait until everybody gets scolded out of his presence, and then you can ask him a question. So you'll have somebody, usually an out-of-town reporter, would come in and say, he's got his little notebook here, and he's like, "Oh, Bill, that fourth quarter sure was a dramatic change in momentum." Laimbeer just keeps on putting on lotion.
Yeah. Made a statement. You didn't ask him anything.
Then he goes, "Anybody got any questions? No? No? Okay, let's keep putting it on." And the guy standing there like, I just. So the guy says the same thing again. And so he puts on some more lotion, looks up, and he says, "Anybody? Questions? No? All right, thanks, guys." And so you wait for them all to clear away, and then you go and ask him an actual question. And it was one of the most powerful teaching moments. Not that he meant it that way, because he was just being a jerk to the guy, but it was one of the most powerful teaching moments for a young reporter.
Yep.
Which was to just don't go in with a statement. If you want an answer, not a yes or no answer, because Billy will give you yes or no, and you're done. Ask a real question, which means what? You had to put some thought into it. And I'd like to think that all these years later, maybe that's part of what's helped me be a decent interviewer at times, because if you're going to elicit an answer from Laimbeer, then you're going to be okay in most situations.
Yep. It's great stuff, man.
So we're at training camp. They used to train at the University of Windsor. And I go down to training camp, and I was working at Fox 66 at the time, and we were shooting little vignettes. We called them the Pistons Spotlight way back in the day. And I was waiting for my time with Laimbeer and then Isaiah. First, Laimbeer has a few reporters around him, including one from I don't know where, but I don't think it was America. There was quite an accent there. Maybe, I don't know where he was from. And he says to Laimbeer, This is, by the way, between Championship 1 and Championship 2. No, that's not accurate. It was before Championship 1 because they were still training in Windsor. But they were still good. I think they just lost to the Celtics. He said, so, Bill, do you anticipate this team making the playoffs this year? And Laimbeer doesn't even hesitate. He goes on this long diatribe of why they probably won't. Really not that good of a team. Really thinks that Isaiah's slacking off. I mean, he's going to town as I'm standing 5-6 feet back, just cracking up and wondering. And this guy is writing down every word. And somewhere in some small community shopping newspaper, they probably had this blaring headline where Laimbeer predicts doom and gloom for the Pistons.
Oh,
you gotta do your homework, man. This is not talking with your aunt and uncle around Thanksgiving table. This is the big leagues in more than one sense. And Billy taught that lesson many times over.
I was going to say, if there's anybody in the league, let alone in Detroit, that's going to teach you a lesson, if you don't do it right, it's going to be Bill Laimbeer.
Yes, still.
Yeah. All you do is watch that interview on the Jump today just to know that he's not changed one iota.
I need to go watch that.
No, not at all.
Other than the hair color, that's the only thing that's really changed.
Bill, I got two stories, and I'll spare you both of them, that are the exact opposite Rick Mahorn stories. I'll give you this one. I'm walking into the Palace one day, and I'd been around less than 5 years, but not one. Wasn't my first rodeo. And you walk through security, same entrance the players come in, and you got to put all your stuff on the thing and your camera. You don't put your camera through the metal detector because it'll jack it all up, so you put it around. And come in behind me is Rick Mahorn. Talked to the guy before. He knows who I am, whatever. Hey, guys, how you doing? He walks through the metal detector, doesn't say another word, picks up my camera, and just starts walking. And this is a big TV camera now. This isn't one of the little ones like I use now. This is a big, ENG camera, 30 pounds or whatever. just starts walking. And I figure, it's Rick, he's going to give it to me 5 steps later. Rick walks all the way around the palace with my camera, and I'm just behind him, probably walking like you were. After about 20 feet, I'm like, okay, where
are we going?
And then finally, he goes, oh, this yours? Hands it to me and just leaves. And that was it. He walked all the way around. Oh, is this yours? And I've talked to him before like 20 times, man.
I sat down at a table at breakfast at the Meyer LPGA Classic last year for the Pro-Am. And at breakfast, there's just people scattered everywhere. And at one table was Mahorn and Buddha Edwards. And there's nobody else sitting with them. I was kind of guessing out of intimidation. And I certainly knew Rick was not going to remember me from Bad Boys era. But I asked if I could sit with him. So we sat down. And I quickly told him the story of him scaring me to death all those years back. And I said, so I kind of think you might owe me a favor. Would you come on my podcast? And I do. Yeah, sure, no problem. I said, well, how do I get a hold of you? He goes, oh, here's my number. He gives me his number. This is only 2 years ago, Ryan. I'm mature now. I'm an established professional at this point, right? So whatever. I'm not playing with him in the event, but after it's done, I get home a few days later. I decide to give the number a call. Non-working number. Yeah, thank you. Good night, everybody. The number you have reached is a non-work. Yeah, that's Rick. Thanks, Rick.
I thought he was going to give you a 1-900 number or something like that. Knowing him.
No chance he was coming through with that phone call. So
Ryan,
he's always messing with people. I can remember my first day. I don't have any like elaborate story like you guys had, but I remember walking down the hall and here comes Rick coming the opposite way. And I'm walking with my trainer and whatnot, and I see this massive man walking toward me. And, of course, the guy I'm with, he knows him really well, so he sticks out his fist and fist bump. I just kind of do the nod thing. I don't know what to do, and he just kind of looks at me like, what the F you looking at? Okay, so, 2 hours later, I go back up into the creative office, and he's still in there, and he's like, you all right, man? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And I introduced myself, and he's like, I was just breaking you in, chump.
It's nonstop, man. It's like you wind up the toy. Like he is wound all the way. Like it never ends, man. Yeah. Ryan, we all got great stories, man. And we've all been privileged enough to have those stories and to see things that a lot of people will never see or hear unless we tell them or they see stuff like this video. I know most of the stories in this video. How about, though, some of the things we do get to see? Last night, I was shocked by Scottie Pippen in his hotel room. Cameras rolling. He opens the door. He's missed 30 games or whatever it is. He says he wants to be traded. It was just the image of him sprawled out on his bed telling what turns out to be Michael Thompson's brother, Klay Thompson's uncle, was the guy that was developing all this video that we haven't seen for 22 years. Just seeing that image of him just telling, whatever random camera for NBA TV that, I'm going to play. Okay. Just stuff like that is incredible to see. Has anything caught your guys' eye at all in any of the episodes?
For me, and it was end of episode 3 into episode 4, talking about Rodman want to take a vacation. And and he goes to, and Phil agrees to it. I mean, the whole dichotomy between Phil and Rodman is pretty interesting. But yeah, he agrees to it, and Michael's like, "Whoa, what are you doing? He's not coming back in 48 hours. Are you kidding me?" And Rodman just does it up. And I don't know if that was like home video footage or one of the cameramen went with him or whatever, but I mean, you could see Rodman was partying like it was 1999, and it wasn't yet. But and then he comes back, and of course, it's like a week later or 2 weeks later, whatever it was, and Phil's like, or Michael's telling the story about how he had to do this. They did this conditioning drill to try to get Dennis back into shape. but everybody's like jogging really slow, and then here's Dennis flying by. He gets to go to the front, and he's sprinting. He's good to go, man. He's good to go. I mean, that was really, really funny. I was interesting.
Yeah, Guy was a machine.
And, that whole Vegas event scenario caught my attention for another reason. One, obviously, we're still a decade and a half away from the invention of the iPhone and social media, right? So you can sort of fly somewhat under the radar because most of it becomes word of mouth and security camera. Two, what team in the history of teams would send its greatest player in its history to retrieve the malcontent? Well, let's keep in mind something. Up to this point, through 4 episodes, Michael's the angel.
Yeah.
To this point, Michael's done no wrong. We haven't heard about his degenerate gambling issues. We haven't heard about anything else that still remains in that kind of untold story part of Michael, and we might not ever get it. You're going to tell me, let's dial this back for a minute here. You're going to tell me that Phil, in all of his new age thinking, says to Dennis, yeah, sure, 48 hours, sabbatical, get on out of here. That's fine. You're going to tell me that the team's next best solution was to say to Michael, could you please, in midseason, jump on a plane,
go get him,
go to Vegas, and retrieve Dennis Rodman? Nobody else could do it. Nobody else could do it except for Michael. I'm gonna put out a theory here that Michael might have made a couple stops at the craps table on his journey to Dennis's room.
I was gonna say he already had that trip planned, I believe, and look, I'll get him on the way, because I will give him this. There probably isn't anybody else who could have dragged him back other than Mike. I mean, he's probably the only one with enough clout, but Michael probably went, you know what? I'm going to be there tomorrow, so I'll just go get him.
I already had a scheduled stop, yeah.
There's no way you're giving Dennis a vacation and Michael not saying, oh, well, then I'm just going to take 24 hours. I'll be back.
Yeah.
And I'll go get him. But we have now in this continued hatred of the bad boys, we have now in this sort of glamour filtered look at Michael's life, we have Michael the angel, and all we're missing is a halo and some harp playing behind everything that he does, because Michael was the only one who ever did everything right. Scotty screwed up, and he did. He signed a horrendous deal that Jerry Krause put in front of him. When the owner of the team says to you, you don't want to sign this,
right?
Here's a thought. Maybe you ought to check with somebody. But Michael knew it all along. Michael knew this was going to happen. And Michael always knew this was going to happen. And I'm kind of like you said earlier, Ryan. I will never contest that man's greatness on the basketball court. But I will forever contest his perfection as a human being. And we're kind of being led down that pathway, at least through episodes 1 through 4. Michael has never made a mistake.
From what I hear, he is going to start berating his teammates very soon in the next few episodes. And Scott Burrell
that's going to be played out as, well, look at a leader. What a leader.
Well, that's true. That's absolutely true. And that's the way it's always been. And that is probably going to happen. But apparently Scott Burrell is just he just gets butchered nonstop. But apparently they're boys. So I don't know. Whatever. Hey, before we go, and I know this is another one that sits right there on your heart, right there, Billy. They did hit on, and again, it's a Jordan thing, the migraine game. Game 7, 1990, Eastern Conference Finals. Pippen comes down with a migraine, plays 42 minutes, but goes 1 for 10, 4 boards, 2 assists. Pistons win by 19. I want you to tell me about that in your thoughts, and I assume your thoughts, at least on this topic, are very similar to one Michael Jordan, who, when the word migraine was said, his initial face was just like that Isaiah Thomas face, only with Isaiah, he kept going and going and going, but then he caught himself when migraine. Yeah. He wanted to, and he goes, hey, man, he came down with the migraine. Okay. He totally switched it. That's my buddy. I got to protect him. Your thoughts on both of those?
My Scottie Pippen thoughts are an incredible talent with a considerable lack of heart and one of the deepest voices I've ever heard. If he's not singing bass in a barbershop quartet,
No.
I don't know what we're doing
Yeah.
here. But
The floor is shaking during this doc when he comes on.
I think it's entirely possible that he may have had what we would commonly refer to as a Mahorn migraine. It's a little bit different from what medication sometimes can treat. This one is kind of brought on by baseline beatings and the anticipation of them. A game 7 was going to be and was an incredibly physical battle. And I'm not going to question the fact that Scottie might have had a headache, because I think the Pistons brought on headaches to an awful lot of people.
Yeah, Ryan, I spoke to a third Ryan last night, and he even tweeted at Ryan Field, former Pistons reporter. He's like, just say you were scared, Scott. You know, that plain and simple. That's just say you were scared, Scott. Didn't even put the IE at the end of it.
As somebody who, myself and especially my wife, suffer from migraines, when a real migraine comes on, you have to have all the lights off, all the sound off. You have to have an ice pack on your head.
You're not playing 41 minutes?
And pray for death. You are not playing 41 minutes.
Pray for death.
You are not. Yeah, you're not going to go 1 for 10. You're just going to lay in your bed with the lights off, and again, pray that you don't die, because they're that bad. They give you a upset stomach. Your whole body hurts from them sometimes. I mean, I can't even imagine trying to play basketball with a migraine. So yeah, he probably had a headache. He probably wasn't feeling good. Maybe he had a little double vision going. Whatever. it doesn't matter, because they got their ass kicked. They got their ass kicked in that game. That game was over in the second quarter.
Yeah, down 27 in the fourth, at the beginning of fourth or something
like that. The Pistons took their foot off the gas in the fourth quarter and they made the score. And I still think they won by like 19. I think it was 93-74. But it could have been 103-74. It could have been 113-74. I mean, it wasn't close. So,
and Ryan, one of the things I thought of when I was watching that again, two things. Number one, I didn't realize Scottie had played that many minutes.
Right.
But I remember seeing the highlight that they showed, very brief one, of Rodman, who was supposed to be guarding Pippen. He's laid back. He's laid back 10 feet off of him. He realizes, I don't even need to expend energy on this, which leads me to this question. How did the quote-unquote greatest coach in the history of coaches leave him on the floor that long?
What other options did they have?
Well, they weren't as deep
Somebody
then.
that could see straight, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. Yeah, they weren't as deep back then. Later on in the playoffs, years later, when Scottie didn't get the ball, he sat on the bench, and Phil was perfectly fine with him sitting on the bench. And then Tony Kukoc hits the game winner. There are a lot of Scottie-isms in there. Scottie is not looking – he's looking good and he's not. Attitude-wise, he's not looking great so far in this doc. But I have seen my favorite thing is, guys know I'm around a lot of young basketball players, the young perspective on everything. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing a lot of Jordan couldn't do nothing without Scottie. Jordan couldn't do it. It wasn't till Scottie. It's all Scottie. Scottie's the key. They were only 2 games better when Jordan came back than they were the year before when Scottie was the runner-up for MVP. And they didn't win anything till Scottie came back. And they were 8-8 until Scottie decided to come back after he said he wanted to be traded and blah, blah, blah. I'm seeing a lot of that, which is very interesting.
When you say that, Ryan, I'm thinking back to episode 1 or 2 where they were talking about the salaries and how Scottie was ranked on the team and the league at the top of every category. I didn't realize that at that time, that the disparity between Scottie making, I think, 2.4 or 2.6, I thought maybe Michael was making 14.
He was making 30.
That was the 30.
He was making 30 at a time when nobody made 30.
Yeah, that was the thing. When he came back, he made 30 that first, and he was signing 1-year deals. He made 30 that first year. I think the next year was 32, and the last year was 34 or 6.
Okay. So here's our angel again, right? Here's our angel again. Here's little Michael, our angel. And he has the audacity to say in regards to Scottie's contract situation, I really felt bad for him. It was really unfortunate. Really? Did you cut him a check?
Well,
did you go into Krause and say, take a couple from me and just move him up so he's at least top 5 on our team? No.
I just love the talk about this. There are so many mistruths all over the place, and the Kobe's better, and MJ played no competition, and LeBron's better, and LeBron would score 90 on these guys, and blah, blah, blah. It just is so great.
If
it
this
ticks
had
me
come
off,
out,
but it's great.
If this had come out in competition with baseball season, hockey playoffs, basketball playoffs, and normal life, we watch it, but we probably aren't as enraptured by it. So the timing of this during all of our shutdown is pretty perfect. I mean, they're drawing numbers on ESPN that are, and they're not Super Bowl numbers, but they're certainly bigger than anything a regular season would ever hold. So
sure.
The timing is good. And to kind of put a bow on what my thoughts are, last night was my favorite couple hours of television in a very long time.
Whatever you think about him, he is, I think, the best team athlete ever. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, you can make arguments, but
You're talking about Laimbeer, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No.
King time?
No. Yeah. He maybe best WNBA coach ever. Can we give him that one?
Yeah,
he's up there for that one.
I think you might be right.
He's definitely up
best
there for that
NBA executive.
WNBA executive.
No, I'm talking about Jordan.
Oh, well. Yay. And they've got that guy, though. And my gosh, this team is incredible. All the stories, and I've said it 1,000 times as well. If you drop Twitter on this team, they'd be done after one game. I mean, you can't. This team would not survive in Twitter land. It's just incredible.
Brian, I have a question for you. Behind you right now, you've got Michael. You've got a Kobe jersey.
Yeah.
So a game 7.
Oh, come on.
Which of those two guys would you want?
Reggie Miller. Reggie Miller. Seriously.
Well, you don't want defense. Then.
I'll take. Oh well, do we want a shot? I'm taking Reggie.
No, not a game-winning shot. A game 7.
Dude, let me tell you, I'm a big Kobe fan. I've always liked Kobe. Come on, man. I'm not even positive, and this will probably get me canceled all around the world. I'm not even positive Kobe is the best player of his generation. Is Tim Duncan better than Kobe Bryant? He might be.
Different style of players.
Yeah, well, right. But, I mean, if we're going to go, because a lot of people make that, hey, you can't compare Russell to Jordan, and you can't compare Kareem to LeBron. And okay, so this generation, Kobe is not like some leaps and bounds past Tim Duncan. I mean, because the guy's like watching paint dry personality-wise, nobody thinks about that guy. That guy's got a couple MVPs, 5 trophies. Dude, that guy is incredible, man. He's the best power forward of all time, if you call him a power forward. That dude. But no, MJ all day. I mean, Kobe, yeah, he hit some shots, but he's not as clutch as everybody thinks. That last title, I believe he was 7 of 24, 6 of 24 in that game. Guy can play D. I mean, he's awesome. He's incredible. He's incredible. But no, MJ is you take LeBron before you take Kobe. That's not even a thing to me.
It was nice knowing you. I mean, it's great to have you around for all these years, and it's so good to talk.
I love Kobe, man. But no, man, Mike, come on, Mike, all day, every day, especially if you're in Cleveland.
Ryan, can you give us the clickbait headline generated by Ryan just now?
Oh man, no, I can't. I can't do it.
Yeah, well,
Slocum says Kobe sucks.
Yeah.
Let me just take a moment to build the case for my guy. Okay.
Yeah. Laimbeer?
Over my shoulder. Because as one who shares a similar leaping ability as Mr. Laimbeer,
yes,
and one who has an appreciation for rough/violent play, I used to have in my locker in high school a poster of Laimbeer. It was the front page of the News or Free Press. It said chairman of the boards, and it was him kind of menacingly posing or something. And the fact that last night I saw on Twitter the Nintendo game that came out with Laimbeer on the cover as a soaring like astronaut dunking over a bunch of people.
Bill Laimbeer's Combat Basketball.
I don't know how you do any better than this guy right here in a Game 7. Well, okay, maybe you can make an argument in some other way. I'm just saying, put him in the discussion.
So it's Jordan, LeBron, Tim Duncan, Kobe, Laimbeer.
There's
One
your
of the starting
five.
That's
Done.
it? Is that our 5?
Done.
We got it.
Pretty good team.
5th all time.
Yes,
Lamb.
Just asking.
Oh, my
Yes,
gosh.
exactly
Nobody
right.
makes better boxes than Lamb. There you go.
There.
And
Who's
guys,
a better golfer, Lamb or Jordan?
Laimbeer.
I don't know. Is he good?
He's really good.
Really good.
That's one you guys apparently know. I did not know. I knew he played, but I didn't know he was really, really good.
And he used to play with standard size clubs,
He
which I can't do. And I'm not 6'11". It was crazy. Yeah, very
had
good player.
the Bill scared walk while he was holding the club.
He was
a little
way
hunched over.
Big time. Big time.
Wow. I did not know that. Well, boys, this was awesome. We did talk a little bit about the documentary, but
there's a documentary in there somewhere.
This is
go
even
watch
better.
it. It's on my DVR, whatever.
Yeah, this was even better, man. This is good stuff. We will definitely have to do this again. If we get NBA basketball again this season, which it looks like we might. Don't know if our team will be playing.
There probably won't be any fans there, I can tell you.
Well, was there anyway?
Oh, so they're going to play at LCA as well.
I was going to go around. I mean, we're just killing everybody now. What are we doing here? Do we have a hit list? Is there anybody else that
You tell me there's one current Detroit Piston that really wants to see the season resume so they can get back in for 11 games.
Well, as our clock is ticking down, yeah, there's talk about that because there's certain guys that want to play maybe 70 games, and teams right now are between 63 and 67 because they don't want to jump right in and have these games count as playoff games and they're rusty. So some of the teams are like, hey, let's play till 70 so we get our legs back. And then there's teams like the Pistons that are probably like, I got to come back to play twice.
Right.
I don't want to do that.
Nope, no chance.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. And Ryan, I'm sure you know better than we do. But I hope we get to play, man, even if it is in front of if they're playing at Disney World or they're playing at the practice facility, whatever they're doing. I want to see it.
They're gonna wait till the last possible minute. We're far too deep into this season to just scrap it if you don't have to. I mean, you can easily push back the 2021 season, because these guys are, regardless if they do go back to work, they're going to need an off season.
Yep.
If the finals push you into August or September,
And you can shorten that too. Next year we play 70 games, whatever it is. But here's the bottom line. This is what it's going to come down to. And everybody like, oh, well, they're going to have to be quarantined. Either they go to Vegas or they go to Disney World and they live in a bubble for 2 months. They're not going to want to do that. Do you want to get paid?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's going to – do you want that $25 million? Well, who was it? Patrick Ewing that said, well, we make a lot of money, but we spend a lot of money too. So there's some bills that need to be paid.
All you got to do is take a look at the parking lot every game night. You can see what they're spending.
Yeah, they're spending 5 years worth of my checks for one tire, So – well, fellas, this was awesome, man. Hey, we got 3 more weeks of this. We should definitely do this again, or either one of you want to just sit on here and tell some stories. I think people would like story time with Uncle Billy.
I think Bill wins the story time for this one. There's good stuff there.
Barely scratched the surface, man.
Yeah, we're in the prologue with Bill. He hasn't even passed kindergarten yet.
I'll give you a 20-second tease for my next story next time we gather. I got to cover the Lakers-Pistons finals on the road in L.A. and couldn't get into the arena. More next time.
More with Bill from the Forum Club with Dr. Buss. Hey, that's coming next Sunday right after church. Awesome, guys. This was great. We will see you later. Take care, guys.
Thanks, both Ryan.
You got it. Thanks, guys.